Hello, and welcome to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where Steve will put a subject on the table, talk about it, and then ask my opinion, and may comment about my opinion. So, over to Steve.
Hi, people. Who are Rachel Bronson, Edmund Brown Jr., Steve Fetter, Asham George, Alexandra Glaser, Daniel Holt, Robert Latif, Herb Lynn, Suzette McKinney, Stephen Miller, Raymond Pierre Humbert, David Relman, Scott Sagan, Ambi Sagar, Robert Sokolow, Susan Solomon, and John Wolfenstone. Who are they? They from the Science and Security Board of the coveted Doomsday Clock. Yes, they are the people who decide what time it is on the Doomsday Clock, which this year remained at 90 seconds to midnight, as it was last year. And because of this inactivity of the change of the time, even though the world has changed since last year, or since 2000, because they decide the times in January of each year. So we go back to the initial part of 2022, or better still 21, 22, 23, because we just reached 24 now. And things have happened in this world which would, in theory, bring the time closer to midnight. However, these people in their sage collective words have kept it at 90 seconds. This brings me to whether the Doomsday Clock has become too political, whereas the people have been frightened to tell the truth and say, that the world last year was worse than it was in 2022. It might be because of the situation in the United States. Because of the United States is losing its grip on the world. It's been respected a lot less this last 2 or 3 years, and we wonder why. However, things that made me think it's becoming a little bit like the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a very political thing. It used to be, the concept of it was a very noble thing, but as time passed on, it became more of a political thing than a noble thing, than a factual thing. And so since 1947, the Doomsday Clock has been ticking away. One curious aspect of the Doomsday Clock was when we're going to go into nuclear war, to the nuclear Armageddon. That was the theory behind it.
Yeah.
But in 2007, the people, the Science and Security Board, not these same people, we're talking about 2007. They decided to add climate change into their little cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
2007 was quite an interesting year for them to do that, because in December 2006 was finished the film Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore, and in 2007 is when he went Scorched Earth. And it was being nominated for Oscars, and I think it was in 2007 he got the Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing. And they were trying to quell the hockey stick theory of when the real scientists discovered that the hockey stick wasn't actually a hockey stick. And
Right.
so that's what led me to think that perhaps it might be more of a political sort of thing. Recently, this year, they've additioned artificial intelligence. So, is it to try and push the needle towards midnight, or is it to try and, you know, are they like a propaganda sort of thing, a publicity thing? Let's all get GPT. Was it GPT
Yeah,
or whatever it
GPT
is?
chat. Yeah, yeah, chat
Yeah, yeah.
GPT. Yeah, yeah.
There you go. I know this podcast is going to be brief, so away you go. Chew on
Right.
that one.
Okay. Um. Okay. Is the world in any more danger than 2 years ago? Overall, I'd say no. I do agree with that. We haven't got rogue nations still capable of any nuclear abilities. Let's just say it that way. Okay. Let's say what we know or what we think we know. Okay. That's all we can do. So I don't think from that perspective there, global warming, or sorry, climate change, climate change. Again, the science isn't precise on that one way or another. Yeah, to claim it's this or that. I don't think that's changed really significantly one way or another since 2007. In fact, that probably might have slipped back a bit. Okay, there's conflicts going round. There's still conventional wars, people killing each other on the ground, as it were. Close proximity. Okay, there's a few missiles flying around, a few drones. That's probably what's changed. That's not going to wipe out the Earth, the civilization. It's possible that there could be a biological threat. I mean, we know that there's labs that are making more and more elaborate biological problems. I think that's where the more likely in the future is going to come. Do I actually believe artificial intelligence is a threat? Overall, no. I still hold that anything I can go and pull a plug out of the wall with, and I'm an engineer, I'm oversimplifying this, is not a threat. I can shut down any system that exists at the moment that we know about. Okay. Yes, I was brought up on 1960s to, I'll say brought up, I used to watch the 90s science fiction films when AI was coming in and it was this threat. And yeah, as Elon Musk says, until things go down the road and robots start shooting people, people won't wake up. I think it's a problem insofar as the fact that people will put reliance on AI to do control systems and they'll suddenly go rogue in an unfeeling way. I do believe that's the problem. I don't think they'll deliberately do it. If they feel, if something's being told, look for threats, and a human tries to intervene, then maybe there could be an issue there. And I don't know what it was. I mean, unless you're going to have things, the capabilities to send sparks or electrocution or weapons in the background somewhere that could come and shoot. Again, I think the biggest threat is somebody actually believing something that they read on AI and enacting it without using critical process and thinking about it. Now, at the moment, some people are trying to convince us that the world is already being controlled by AI. I thought the idea of introducing AI, that there was logical, rational thinking into the situation, not the craziness we have now, which is still, to me, very much human frailties such as greed, power hungry, misunderstanding. Computers on the whole will find a way to understand each other. This was proved by Facebook some years ago, where they shut down a project where they were trying to develop a communication system that spoke to each other. And they had two computers speaking to each other, and they developed their own language, which was literally very logical. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, blah, 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 blah. It's online. Al Jazeera did a report about it, which was quite an interesting thing. This is about 8 years ago, I think. That's where AI can go rogue. But again, the leap from that to AI being a major threat is still big for me.
When,
I
when I'm on
don't
about
think the world has become any more dangerous in respect to wiping out civilization than it was even 20 years ago.
no, well, we're not talking about 20
I
years
think
ago.
there's still a threat, however it comes. My gut feeling is there will be a biological incident somewhere. We've had the warning about it, either intentional or unintentional. And despite what we say, COVID did exist. There's no doubt about it. Did any more people die of COVID than normal? Okay, we'll get the figures in another 5 years, probably. Make the decision then. It is it's always, these things are always subject to being political. Like we all know what's happened to the Nobel Prize, very noble at one point. How many of us can actually name Nobel Prize winners anyway in recent years? You know, it's of no major interest to me. As you said, there's been physicists in the past that won it. Clever people have proven themselves. But then, to me, it lost all credibility when Obama won it. Why did Obama win the Nobel Prize? Did he achieve anything? He got elected as the US president. Okay, so what do you think, Steve, about what I just said?
Well, we've talked about the last 20 years, about saying that the world hasn't come into hasn't changed all that much. Well, the clock wasn't exactly the point I was trying to make. The clock has been going backwards and forwards over the last 20 years, yes, it has. However, I feel that the clock going backwards and forwards, especially since 2007, has been manipulated by external forces and not necessarily the criteria of what it was when it was in its conception. It's like the changing the goalposts as you move along, and you can't change the goalposts of what you're measuring by, just to keep the project going.
Mm.
And so I use the 2007 Al Gore
Yep.
Episode to try and highlight that to a certain degree it might have been hijacked from the political spectrum. But the point I'm making is that from this year and last year, the clock hasn't moved. It's always been at 90 seconds, and I think that probably it's because of once again political pressure. Because why? Because the clock is moved or is revised every January at the beginning of the year. So they'll be looking at last year, 2003. What happened last year? What happened and last year they'll be looking at what happened in 2002, 2023, sorry,
Yeah.
and 2022.
Yes.
Right. So what happened from 2022 to 2023 that changed over the last 2 years, and I would argue that quite a lot has changed, because what was, albeit tense, however, changed in the Middle East, is that the Middle East is flaring up. And last year, when the invasion of what was that last year, at the beginning of this year, when the
Well, it
invasion
depends.
of Israel.
Yeah, that was the end of last year. So that October the 7th was the trigger
That's right.
for the
That's
current
right.
the current
And
situation.
since
Yeah.
then, the Middle East has flared up again.
Mm.
Uh, Africa has always been Africa, and they're always going to have their rifle wars, and bang bang. The rhetoric coming out of the Europe about Russia has got worse, has gotten worse. The economic situation in Europe has gotten a lot worse, which often leads to war.
Yeah.
You know, right? The situation in the US on the world stage is deteriorated. China has been blowing the horn about taking over Taiwan again, and they don't change the time on the clock. Why? And that's the point I'm trying to make.
No.
I know that Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for doing
Yeah.
nothing, as did Greta Thunberg
Yeah.
also for not doing a great deal, as did Al Gore in 2007. You know, I can tell you that there's a publication here in Brazil called Caras, and in this publication, it just shows wealthy people in their homes being photographed on their chaise lounge,
Yeah.
and just saying what a wonderful person they are. Now, you would think that Caras would be going after these well moneyed people to get an exclusive on them. Of course, but no, no. Believe it or not, we were Julia, well, more Julia than me. Julia, by the way, is my now ex-wife. But,
Yeah.
she was invited to take part in Caras in this magazine. However, she had to pay to be in it.
Right.
So basically, Caras isn't all of a sudden doing exclusives. It's just catching people who've got a lot of money, who've got an ego bigger than their wallet, to appear in this magazine. I only discovered this year that to get a Golden Globe nomination, you have to pay. You have to pay.
Well, it's
So
lobbying. Yeah. Yeah.
you have to pay to be nominated, and then out of all the nominations, they'll find a winner. But for that initial nomination, you have to pay. So all of what we see in the media and all of these think tanks and etc. 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 they aren't necessarily what they appear to be. They're in their conception, their idea in the initial stages
Yeah.
might have been very, very honest and true, but I think as time goes on, it's getting more and more.
Yeah, I mean that's the nature of things, and you and I, we've got a few grey hairs between us. We've
Some
seen,
more than others.
yeah, we've seen the world turn a few times, and yeah, we've got experiences, and yeah, we are cynical. What really shocks me, especially in this day and age, is that the people in the elites, let's call it, or whatever you want to call it, actually believe that we believe it. Or maybe the few people that do believe it, the factory too.
I'm afraid a lot of people do.
Yeah. And okay, I like films. I like watching films. I like to be entertained, and some actors I might not like them in real life, in their life. I might, if I met them, probably would like them, but they entertain me. Okay, fair enough. Same with musicians. Do I go out my way to read about them? Probably not. I used to years ago when I was 14. I used to get the magazines or read about them in the Daily Mirror, where I was an editor called Piers Morgan. He used to have his bizarre column. He was actually quite good at what he did, admittedly. I used to read that. My grandmother used to get the Daily Mirror and used to read it. And that's how I knew. Smash Hits or #1 magazine. Again, yeah, it's moving away from my original point. But yeah, these people, it was all the publicity machines, even then, the PR. They weren't just musicians, they weren't just actors, they had a big PR organization behind them. And this is as old as civilization itself. From if you consider the first civilization was Mesopotamia, then Babylonia, etc., and going right the way through empires. And these empires have all built up and fallen again. Yeah. And again, there was always a separation between the elites and the hoi polloi on the ground, as it were. When you study it, there's always a distrust, but they all looked up to it. The people on the ground looked up to the refinery of their leaders. Egypt operated that way. When you look at it, Rome did. Roman Empire did. So, I mean, yeah, okay. Get back to this Doomsday Clock scenario. These are civilizations that went up and fell back again. Now, you consider they didn't realize at the time how close they were to falling. They were living in the bubble. Maybe some people like us could see things one quite as they should be. Yeah, I could go into so many different sociological issues about gender issues and everything else that led to different things happening in society. But they didn't realize it was happening. Now, the last great empire the world ever knew was the British Empire, which was relatively new, and the biggest empire, relatively short-lived, as empires go, funny enough. Depends on when you say the British Empire started. It's the first time probably in human history that we actually have a global empire, in effect. Yeah? There was mass communication in the British Empire.
The sun never sets. The sun never sets. British Empire.
What was that, sorry?
The sun never sets.
Oh, the sun never set. Yeah, the sun never set on the British Empire. Yeah, it was too big to sustain. It collapsed in upon itself. It wasn't a good business anymore. And the things. I mean, effectively, probably the British Empire effectively ended in 1948. For being honest, we lost America a long time ago, the US things. What's happening now? And this is all going to be part of, if you like, I agree with you a little bit, that is a frightening world. In that we're now splitting into two super empires. If you consider the Western Empire, US, Europe, I'm going to separate the UK as well, and that side of it, and then the BRICS. That is two major empires. And this is what worries me a little bit, that are growing in their own way. Almost old world and new world. Okay? These people, so is that worrying? Yes, in regards to the Middle East, what's being played out in the Middle East could be part of the decline of an empire, whatever we're declining into the empire now. This is what the Doomsday Clock is about for me. I don't see, and again, get back to it. These empires fell, but human civilization continued. It didn't suddenly disappear. Yeah. If we're saying the Doomsday Clock. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah.
The Doomsday Clock, the inception of the Doomsday Clock was to predict, if you like, or register how much closer we were for a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
So empires can rise and fall willy-nilly in the past. That isn't the object of, that wasn't, it's never been the object of the Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
And the point, the final point, just to put a nail on, knock the nail on the head of this subject, is the Doomsday Clock become too political because they are too frightened to move the needle forward or bring it back?
So,
I think move it forward. I think move it forward because of political pressure, perhaps from the US. That's what I'm trying to say.
well, again, in itself, it's a theoretical idea. We discussed the other day about the WEF and them saying, "Brave, build back better," or whatever else it is. Yeah, new world order. Something will happen to do this. Now, this is what I'm saying. I know what you're saying. It is, are we going to destroy ourselves? That's what it's saying.
All I'm asking is the Doomsday Clock has it
politically.
left its original idea
Well,
and succumbed to political pressure?
of course it has, but it's always been a political
There
notion.
you are. No,
Yeah,
but it hasn't always been a political. It hasn't always been a political. Uh, it hasn't always been pushed by political ideology.
no,
It's been
but
pushed by technology, and when the Cold War came in, when you had the missile crisis in
uh,
Cuba, then the needle became
well,
closer to midnight, and then later on it was brought back a bit,
yeah,
and then moved forward, brought back a bit. But I think that what I think that these days, as is the case in most things, is that it's succumbed to political pressure and not what is actually happening in the world.
yeah. But again, this is getting back to my point of when empires fall, um, things do become political. Things become, yeah, external pressures. The elites start exerting their own ideas on things out of fear, out of everything else. They're losing grip. We are going through probably the biggest global technological change, greater than the industrial revolution. This is related to it, where we as individuals know what is going on, or we have the ability to communicate with each other and speculate what's going on. So yes, it's going to, by its nature, become more of a tool for political elites, probably to, if you like, feel good about themselves almost, because how many of us really pay that much attention to it? Are we fearful of where we're going in the world? Well, anyone who's looking out their window at the moment, going online, is going to have some worries, concerns. How much can we influence it? Not a lot. So are we really worried about a few academics moving a needle on a clock one way or another?
And so basically, what we're saying is, what I'm trying to say is that Doomsday Clock is very much like the Nobel Peace Prize. It's
Yeah,
very much like the Oscars, the Emmys.
yeah, exactly.
They're there as organisations just for show.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
it.
are. There you
It's the ultimate
are.
virtual city in its
En,
effects.
encerrou.